Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and today I'm back to do another video. Today I'll be doing my mid-year book Freakout tag. I'm not sure who it was originally created by, however I think it's kind of in the booktube public domain, if you will, as I see pretty much everyone do this tag. I've always enjoyed watching it over the years and I have always enjoyed thinking about my reading through kind of during the middle time of the year to see where I could improve my reading or what kind of my stats are looking like. I'm a huge stats nerd when it comes to my reading. I keep a whole Excel spreadsheet and everything, so I will be sharing a couple of my stats from this first half of the year and then we'll get into the questions after that. In total, I've read to completion 69 books, and then I have 2 books that I've DNF'd, but I put on my Excel spreadsheet because I wrote reviews of both of those books, one of which was a advanced copy that I received from NetGalley, so I felt the need to respond that I had given up on the book, and the second of which was a nonfiction book that I didn't necessarily dislike. It just wasn't really what I was expecting, nor did I think I was going to get anything more out of it, but I did enjoy the reading experience while it was happening, so I included both of those because I gave them reviews on Goodreads on my spreadsheet. So we're going to be working with the number 71 as opposed to 69. So of those 71 books, 80% were written by women. This is not very surprising to me. I mostly read books by women. That's something that I don't think will change in my reading, nor do I really even want it to. I have read 17% of my books were written by men, which is 12 books in total. One book was written by a non-binary author, which was Reverse Solomon, and the other was an anthology that had both men and women, I believe, in the collection. Potentially some non-binary people, but I don't remember that necessarily. Next up, we have 58% of those 71 books were written by white people and 41% were written by people of color, and then that anthology had both white and non-white voices. This is not a terrible statistic. I was actually thinking it would be lower in terms of the number of people of color that I've read during this first half of the year. Obviously I would like that gap between white people and non-white people to lessen, potentially reading more authors of color than white authors eventually. However, I'm not terribly displeased with a 60-40 split, and I do hope that that number will decrease as the year continues on. Then looking specifically within my authors of color, I read primarily Black authors. They account for 48% of all of the authors of color I read, and that is primarily focused on African Americans here in the US. Then I read primarily Asian American authors next, which is 31% of my authors of color in total, followed by I've read 2 First Nations authors, i.e. people that are from an indigenous tribe here in the United States, so that counts for 7% of my authors of color. I've read 2 Latinx authors, both of which were actually Latina authors, so that's also 7%, and then I've read 2 authors from the Middle East, one of whom was from Syria, and that was a translated work that I read back in January, and the other was 10 Minutes 38 Seconds by Elif Shafak, who is a Turkish woman currently living in Britain. So that is kind of my breakdown of authors of color. Then moving on to format, I've read 68% of my total 71 books was a physical book, and then 30% was an ebook. I've been reading ebooks more and more this year, so I do expect this number to kind of increase as the year continues on, as I read it as the last book that I read before I go to bed. And then I've listened to 2 audiobooks. I'm not a big audiobook listener. That was 3% of my reading, but I do listen to them on occasion. Of those physical books and ebooks, 83% were ones that I already owned, and then 17% were from the library. In terms of nonfiction versus fiction breakdown, 77% of my reading has been fiction and 20% has been nonfiction. I have been getting more and more into nonfiction, so I potentially will see this number grow, especially because I think I might do Nonfiction November, reading nonfiction exclusively this year. We'll see how that pans out, but that is my preliminary plan for Nonfiction November. And then I've also read 2 poetry collections, which is 3% of my total 71 books. As for the age demographics, I primarily, very strongly read adult fiction. That's 93% of my reading. However, I have read 1 that was a YA adult crossover, 1 middle grade book, and then I've read 3 YA books, which account for 4% of my total reading. And then finally, in terms of star ratings, average rating has been a 3.75, which I'm pretty pleased with. A 3.75 in my eyes is a book that I really enjoyed quite a lot. I don't give out 5 stars super often, but I also don't really give out 1 stars, 2 stars I give out on occasion. So I think 3.75 is showing that I'm having a relatively good reading year. So those were all my statistics. Now getting into the questions. So starting off with a bang, we have what is your favorite book that you have read this year? And I split this into fiction and nonfiction because as I said, nonfiction is now accounting for about 20% of my reading. I didn't feel like it was fair to pick one that encompassed both of those types of reading. So for my fiction pick, I have Real Life by Brandon Taylor. I talked about this one in my April wrap-up. I believe I counted it for the OWLs at the time. And I really, really enjoyed this one. I also did a review of this one along with Days of Distraction, which I will put in the cards up above. But yeah, I just absolutely love this one. One of my all-time favorites for sure. However, I do have two that will also be very strong contenders. The first of which is one that I just finished this month, which was City We Became, which I'll talk about more in my June wrap-up, as well as the book I'm currently reading, which is The Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. Really enjoying this one. We'll also talk about it in my June wrap-up. Then for nonfiction, my favorite book of the year, and potentially one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, has to be The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Truer. This was just absolutely phenomenal. It's very hefty and it's very dense, but it is also very readable and very important. So would highly, highly recommend this one. The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs, which I read and talked about during my Springathon vlog, which I'll also link up above, is another contender for my favorite nonfiction book of the year. Second, we have What is your favorite sequel you've read this year? I've not read a ton of sequels and none of them have particularly blown me out of the water. However, when thinking about this question, I thought about a sequel that kind of redeemed its series for me, which was The Wedding Party by Jasmine Guillory. I read and really enjoyed The Wedding Date, which is Guillory's debut, and then since then her two works in between that one and this one, The Proposal and The Royal Holiday, were just fine for me. I didn't particularly like them. However, The Wedding Party was super fun, super engaging, and definitely kind of reignited my love of Jasmine Guillory. So in terms of like a sequel doing what it's supposed to do and keeping you engaged in the series, this one definitely has that beat. However, I also really enjoyed The Vanderbeekers and The Hidden Garden. However, this one feels a little odd to pick for this choice because I've not read the first one. This is the sequel to The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street, but I've never read that one, so it feels weird to call it my favorite sequel. So there's that. Question number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, but are really excited to get to. And for this, I'm going to pick my most recent acquisition that's still on its way to me, which is Sleepovers by Ashley Bryant Phillips. I've talked about this one in my anticipated releases video for June to September, so I will put a link to that one up above. But this is a short story collection published by Hub City Press that's all about the rural South and kind of growing up in the rural South, and I'm very, very excited about it. Plus it has just a stellar cover. Question number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Again, this one I talked about in my most anticipated releases video, but it has to be Transcendent Kingdom by Yael Jossi. I read and loved Homegoing, and I cannot wait for her sophomore novel. This one comes out on September 8th, and I will definitely be picking it up as soon as possible. Additionally, I do want to point out that I will definitely be doing an anticipated releases video for October through December, as my anticipated releases video did quite well, so keep an eye out for that closer to October, i.e. like in September sometime is likely when I will be making that video. Next up, we have your biggest disappointment of the first half of 2020, and I've had quite a few disappointments. I'm thinking of disappointments more as a book that I was really expecting to like, and then I really ended up not liking it, as opposed to a book that I wasn't sure I was gonna like anyway, namely Jack's Newburyport. It wasn't really disappointing because I knew I wasn't gonna like it. However, there were a couple books that I really did think I was going to like, including Salt by Mark Kurlansky, which I read at the beginning of the year and is very, just not great. But additionally, we also have The Unspoken Name by A.K. Logcrud. This one just was not really what I was expecting it to be. Same with The Hating Game. It was fine, but nothing to write home about. Perennials by Mandy Berman, which I'll be talking about in my June wrap-up. I finished that one. It was no bueno, not good. But I think my biggest disappointment in general would have to be Beach Read by Emily Henry. I read this one back when it was a Book of the Month pick, I think in May, and everyone and their mom seems to absolutely love this book, and I thought it was the most like plain and uneventful rom-com that I've read in a long time. I didn't really like any of the characters, didn't really like the plot. Yeah, it was hugely disappointing for me, which is sad because like literally everyone on BookTube loves it. But you know, that's how it goes sometimes, really. Question number 6 is the biggest surprise of the year so far, and this question I'm kind of splitting into 2 categories. The first of which is being surprising in how like wild of a story it was. Has to go to Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. As I talked about in my April reading wrap-up, I read the last like 250 pages of this in a single morning. Like I could not put this book down. It was that like twisty turny. So in terms of a surprising like turn of events over the course of the novel, it would definitely have to be that. In terms of my enjoyment and how much I actually ended up liking the novel, that would go to Recursion by Blake Crouch. I read this one on a whim last month in May, and I really enjoyed it. much more than I was anticipating. I talked about that one in my May wrap-up, which I will link up in the cards above. Question number 7 is a new favorite author, and I think, as I've seen with a lot of people discussing this question, I don't really think of a new favorite author until I've read several of their books. However, I did want to point out several debut authors that I really enjoyed this first book, and I am very eager to get to the next one. So we're going to do this kind of rapid fire style. Real Life by Brandon Taylor, Days of Distraction by Alexander Chang, My Autobiography of Carson McCullers by Jen Chaplin, Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, The Lightness by Emily Temple, Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore, Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams, and The Margot Affair by Senai Lamont. I would highly encourage everyone to check all of those out, as they are phenomenal debuts, and I'm really looking forward to all the rest of their future work. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush. I don't really develop fictional crushes in general. However, I will point out that David Trier gives off major hot professor vibes, and Theo from The Wedding Party is just like a little sweetie pie, very nerdy, very you know, like this like secret like nerd that like always goes to the gym type, which, you know, is always fun to read about. So there are my 2 fictional crushes, I guess, but I wouldn't consider either of them to be like crushes really at all. So there's that. Question number 9 is your newest favorite fictional character, and I couldn't pick just one, so I have several. The first of which is Wallace from Real Life. He is so well drawn and wonderful, and I care so much about him. Same goes for Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. Again, phenomenal. Want to protect her and help her grow. I also really like all 3 of the characters from Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, as well as Zoe from Luck of the Draw by Kay Claiborne. She just was like very headstrong, and I liked her a lot. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I thought I hadn't read any books that made me cry this year, and then as I was going through my Excel spreadsheet, I realized that I did tear up at The Vanderbeekers in the Hidden Garden. Middle grade just like gets you every time. And this one has an older man who's lost his wife and daughter, and there's some kind of very cute moments towards the end in terms of him growing and like kind of overcoming his debilitating grief, which are really moving and special. So yeah, The Vanderbeekers did make me, I think, shed a single. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy. All of the Uptown collection that I've read so far by Ruby Lang has made me happy, particularly Playing House, as I think the premise of these 2 urban planners like falling in love was super, super cute. Additionally, The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs by Steve Bruce also made me happy just because I love dinosaurs. And then finally, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which I just finished, also made me really happy in terms of its like hopeful city narrative. So if you give me cities that are, you know, vibrant and community filled, or dinosaurs, I will be happy. So there you go. Question number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year. This question was quite a challenge. I had my sisters help me because I have received many beautiful books, but I narrowed it down to 3, and we also established some common themes that I like to have in my book covers. So the 3 that I most enjoy that I've gotten this year are Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore. I love the detailing on here. I'm a big outdoorsy person, and so I think any like outdoor scenes I'm really drawn to, but also the fact that this is a photograph and it like tells the story with the like oil rigs in the background is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the font, but like that's fine. And always book of the months are not like the most beautiful, you know, the back's always blank, but yeah, really enjoyed their like color palette in this one. Additionally, we also have Conjure Woman by Afia Atakora. I saw someone say her name and it was different than how I have been saying it, but now I cannot remember how they said it. I will definitely, before I read this, look up how to say her name properly, but I think I'm not saying Atakora right. So if anyone knows the correct pronunciation, please put it down in the comment section below. But I love this cover as well. I do love the font on this one, and then just the drawing is really phenomenal, and like you can see both faces, and the kind of floral designs are really nice, just like all around very nice vibes. And then the last one is my most recent acquisition, which is Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn. This one is set in Hawaii, and it's more of kind of a magical, fantastical story, so I'm really excited about this one. And it has just like the kind of color gradient of this is really aesthetically pleasing to me. I don't particularly love the font on this one either, but I think the colors are just like really drawing to me, and they continue along to the back. So we determined that I really like some good color gradients, and then I also just like purple and orange on covers. So if you put, and which is also, I'm realizing, true with Queenie in real life as well. So if you put some purple or some orange on a cover, I will probably like it. So publishers, take note. And then question number 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? This one, I don't, I mean, I both like have an answer which is all of them and also an answer which is whatever I want. I do have a couple reading projects that I'm working on, such as my African Women Writers project that's continuing through the end of the year, as well as my chopping block / 5-star predictions, which I talked about in my TBR reduction video, which I'll link up above. I also have my NetGalley e-arcs that I've been working my way through as the publishing dates come up for those. But yeah, I mean, the unread books sitting on my bookshelf, books that I want to read, I don't really know. Whatever I end up reading, I will be happy that I have gotten to it by the end of the year. So that's all of my answers to this tag. If you have any similar favorites to me, or any of these books sounds intriguing to you, please leave a comment down in the comment section below. Additionally, if you found me through this tag, welcome. My name is Jenny. I make bookish videos on this channel. Please give me a subscribe if the type of books that I've talked about in this video interest you, as they are the type of books that I generally talk about on my channel. Otherwise, I think that is it. I hope everyone's having a great day, and I will talk to you next time.